Contender Series Week 2 recap. For the first fight of the night, it was Billy Brand versus Cody Haddon, and all I'm going to say is Cody Haddon had a lot better striking than I was expecting. Going into this fight, I definitely thought this fight was going to go to a decision. I didn't think he had that power on the feet. The fight started off like how I thought it was going to be. It was very even striking on the feet. Cody was trying to get the takedowns, but Billy Brand was defending them really well and scrambling back to his feet. He got then Cody Haddon on one of the breaks clipped him with something, and Billy Brand went down. He wasn't out, but Cody Haddon followed him to the ground. He got his back, put the submission in, and this finish reminded me a lot of Justin versus Charles Oliveira, just a drop and then follow him to the ground, and it was a really good performance. And I'm really excited to see what Cody Haddon can do inside the UFC. Like we said, his only loss comes to Steve Ercik, and after getting this knockout against a guy like Billy Brand, who's a really good UFC fighter, really good striking background, he dropped him and then got the submission, and the fight could have been stopped before he even got the submission. But really good performance by Cody Haddon, first round finished. Excited to see what he can do inside the UFC. This next fight is Cameron Roasting versus Torrence Finney. From the start of the fight, you could see that Finney was like pushing up Cam against a cage, and then he would get the takedown. But Cam was actually scrambling up to his feet pretty well. But whenever Cam would get up to his feet, Torrence would just take him down again. And then we saw Cameron kind of got a little bit of separation, but he would kind of overextend on his combinations and get taken down. For a lot of the first round, Finney had a ground control where he was holding Cam against the cage. There was a moment where like Vinny picked him up, and you could see like the look on his coach's face, and it just like you knew Cameron Roasting was cooked. But even with the takedowns, Cam almost got a triangle choke at the end of the round. He was actually throwing up some pretty good submissions from his back during the fight, so I was actually pretty surprised by that. But even Finney would get the takedowns, but he wasn't even really able to do anything with them, which was kind of surprising. But it was still a really good performance on the feet. But Cam kept on getting back up to his feet, and he was doing pretty well a lot of times. But like I said, he would just overreach on the feet, and Finney would get the takedown. Finney just had very good wrestling. What can I say? Even if Cam got back up, a lot of the breaks he would throw really good combinations and land some good shots in the pocket. There's no question that Cam had very good striking, but he just couldn't keep it on the feet. And at the end of the day, Finney's wrestling is what won him the fight. I really, I really don't know how Finney's gonna do in the UFC. He didn't look the best in the fight, and he looked like he was kind of gassing out. And even when he had top control, Cam was throwing up some good submissions and good strikes from the back. So Torrence Vinny couldn't get the finish, which I was kind of surprised with, because Cameron Roasting does not have that great of ground game. And Cameron Roasting was throwing some really good strikes on the feet. Like, he hit him with a really good front kick. And if he's fighting a guy that has really good power, I think that front kick could put a guy like Torrence Vinny out. So either Torrence Vinny just has a really, really nasty chin and he was eating those shots, or Cameron Roasting doesn't have the most power. But end of the day, Torrence Vinny got the win because he had ground control and great wrestling. And yeah, on to the next. The next fight took place at bantamweight. It was Michael versus Keturvios Ramos. I have a lot to say on this fight. From the beginning of the fight, Romeos was the way faster striker on the feet, and you could tell that from the start. Like, you could tell it from the combination. Like I said in my prediction, Michael couldn't get the takedowns in the first round. He would just pull guard like a little bitch. Michael went in for takedowns and got hit with like a liver, like a knee to the liver, and Romeo's jumped on top of him. I don't think that was the smartest thing to do, like go into a guy's guard like Michael. But Cortavia stood up and both of them got back to their feet. I was actually surprised by the level of striking that Michael was showing in the first round. Michael was he was being a bitch low key, and he kept on pulling guard and couldn't do anything with it, and he would just give Romeo's top control. Um, the main problems is that Michael kept like just going on his back, and then Romeos would just get top control, and Romeos could hit him with some good shots. Like, and Romeos, so Michael kept on backing straight up, and Romeos would just hit him with some good shots. He would just back straight into the cage, and Michael would hit him with good combinations. Cratavius would just hit him with some good combinations against the cage, and it kind of surprised me because in the second round, Michael got a really good lat drop and got top control, but he couldn't do anything with it. And Romeo's almost had a really good armbar, and I thought that he had it, but Michael found a way out of it. But Romeo's found a way to change positions, and he got on top position, and he went into the last round up 2-0, and Romeo's went up 2-0 into the last round. They both went out and started throwing crazy at the beginning of the round, and Michael would throw single shots, and I think he could have gotten more success if he threw more combinations. And I have to admit that Michael was super tough. It wasn't what I was expecting from him. He was eating a lot of Romeo's shots, and Romeo's was throwing really good punches. And like halfway through the third round, Romeo hit him with an accidental groin shot, and then Michael got back up and just kicked him right in the dick. So it's really funny, in my opinion. And it was a really really stupid moment when Michael was down 2-0 and he decided to pull guard. Like he pulled guard twice, and I don't know what he was thinking. You don't pull guard when you're down 2-0. And he just didn't do once. He did it twice, and Romeo didn't look the best in the fight. I know he had some. If there was more time on the clock, he would have got the submission. But I don't know how he's gonna do in the UFC. He didn't. Couldn't put a guy away like Michael, which I was kind of surprised about. But it was still a pretty good fight at the end of the day. Both of the guys looked decent, and yeah, it was an alright fight. I don't think should Romeo should get the contract, but I don't think he's gonna do that much in the UFC. Yeah, on to the next fight. This fight was actually a pretty good fight. Out the gate, Rivion was just chasing him, and Hugo does not look like he belonged in that octagon. He looked horrible on the feet. He looked like he was getting hit by every shot. He was just shelling up against the cage, and Hugo went for a couple takedowns. Like Kivion tried to hit him with a flying knee, and Hugo caught it and just held him against the cage. And Kivion found a way to separate and pressure Hugo on the feet. And Hugo just kept on trying to go for takedowns or pressure against the cage, and he couldn't really get anything going from there. And he started pressuring Rivion against the cage, and on the break, Rivion just hit him with a nasty knee, then hit him with an elbow to the head. And yeah, it was a really good KO. He beat Hugo barely got KO'd according to the bell. It was like the ref stopped it with 1 second left. It was just a pretty NPC heavyweight fight if I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Rivion's gonna do much in the UFC. He didn't put on the performance I was expecting from him. So he did get the first round KO, but Hugo hasn't been able to get much success with wrestling, and he was able to pressure pretty well. So that was pretty interesting to me. So Rivion definitely deserves a contract. This is his second win on the Contender Series. He's had them both by finish. He's one of the best UFC fighters. He's one of the best MMA fighters outside of the UFC, so he definitely deserves a contract. I don't think Hugo should be allowed near the UFC again. He is a horrible striker. He can only wrestle. He's like a wrestler, but for Rudelis to Spain, he just doesn't look good on the feet. Like he almost looks incompetent on the feet, and he can't even implement his wrestling that well. So, yeah, on to the next. This was the main event of the evening, and it did not disappoint. So out the gate, Gustafsson would just rush him and started throwing like shots, and then they clinched up. He managed to get a takedown, but Pat got up, and they were just clinching for most of the first round. Whenever the clinch would break, Pat would actually throw really, really good shots. And he was also doing a really good job at defending Andreas' takedowns. But Andreas in the clinch was actually hitting with some really good knees and elbows, and I was actually pretty impressed by Pat's ability on the break. So near the end of the first round, Pat hit him with a really good shot, and he clipped Gustafsson for a second, and Gustafsson just ate the shot and like just plowed him into the cage and got more control. The same thing happened at the start of the second round. Gustafsson came out and just clinched. When they were outside of the clinch, Pat was actually throwing some really good shots. He threw some really good overhands, and Pat hit him with some really good shots outside the clinch, so I have to give him credit there. Um, Literally, whenever they would get separation, he would throw a really good shots, but Andre would just go back to the clinch and threw some nasty knees, and he hit him multiple times and got the KO. And Andreas, I think, is going to be a problem in the division. I think he beats Shara. He beats a couple other ranked opponents. I'm probably going to make a tier list going through opponents that I think he could beat. but I do think he's going to be a really good UFC fighter. I think Pat has the ability to be a really good UFC fighter too. But Gustafsson's clinching was really good. His takedown attempts were really good. My only problem with Andreas is sometimes he would have lackluster defense when he would get outside the clinch. But overall, he put on a really good performance, got the second round KO, and if he doesn't get the contract, I'm going to be shocked. But Pat definitely deserves another shot at the UFC somehow. He was looking pretty good. He hit Gustafsson with some really good shots, but like I said in my predictions, I was predicting that. And I did go 5-0 in the predictions. I sweep the predictions. It was pretty much all the favorites won, but I'm still going to take that.